So, welcome back to the Commercial Account Executive A Readiness series. If you're dropping into this video, we are a number of videos into this series. So, go to the playlist down below. My team should have a link. Don't click off this one, watch this one, and then go just binge watch everything in that playlist. Trust me, it will be useful and it will all make sense. But if you're following along, as part of the playlist, then we are effectively at this stage here, right? So we're going to do a deep dive into what's called the post-demo feedback meeting. I know I say this for like every video, but this is a very important step. So do not skip this. Do not skip this video, and also take plenty of notes. Seriously, like cancel whatever you're doing right now. Tell your girlfriend or your boyfriend to shush or make them watch. And take notes, because this meeting, this call in the sales cycle is one of the most crucial steps. Like if you nail this, your forecast accuracy will go through the roof. And if you miss this, your forecast accuracy will go down the toilet, okay? I have literally seen reps that have missed this step and their deals have just slipped. Right? Like they do not have a handle on their deals because they haven't asked some of the most critical questions to establish viability of the project, right? So very important stage. So essentially what this looks like is you are going to have a deck. It's a very straightforward deck. I have a sample over here. So I call this proposals/pricing and the go, no go meeting. You can use the same deck actually. But essentially what you're going to do is very straightforward. You're going to have 3 slides. So you're going to have 2 slides. So two slides are going to be focused on the customer, so the VP and the 3 whys. You're going to have 1 pricing slide to do your good, better, and best scenario. And optional, if you have enough information, you're going to do what's called a reverse timeline slide, right? So a reverse timeline is basically something like this, right? So you essentially work back from a target go live date and you outline all the key dates that are involved in commercials, in procurement, in legal, in POC/POVs, right back to the exact point that you are at with them. So if you have enough information, then present the slide. If you don't, keep this slide up your sleeve and you will use this in your next call, which is the go, no go meeting, okay? So that is essentially the layout. Now, in terms of the pricing slide, just use this template. I've just built it out. It works. I've used this in Gartner. I've used this at CrowdStrike. I've used this at Zscaler. This shit works, okay? The scenarios are basically the good, better, and best scenario, which means it's kind of like your bronze, silver, and gold, right? And how you outline all the pricing is you just talk about the challenges that this pricing, you talk about the challenges that this solution will address. So say, for example, they have 5 critical challenges. Make it so this scenario addresses like 2 or maybe 3 of those 5, right? So it's clearly like, hey, this is our cut down version. Mention the capabilities, mention any technology SKUs, and then include your annual contract value, and then include your pricing per user per month. So if your annual contract value is like, $50,000, and you have say 500 or 1,000 users, then your pricing per user per month will be, remember that, divided by 12. So your pricing per user per month is $4.16, right? So the reason you want to finish off with this really small number is it's like that analogy when people are like, hey, do you want to spend $30 a month? And you're like, no, but then someone could say, do you want to spend the equivalent of a $3 coffee a day? And it's like, oh, actually, that's not bad. Like a coffee a day, I have a coffee a day. I could probably just have 1 less coffee and I could spend $30 a month, right? So it's that same like psychology, but trust me, it translates even in enterprise sales, okay? So same thing works for the second scenario. So maybe instead of addressing just 2 out of 5 challenges, this scenario might address 4 out of 5 challenges. And then the final scenario addresses all 5 out of 5 challenges, plus it has a couple of bonus things that it can address for them, and then follow the same thing, right? So pricing wise, that's your general framework for how you show a pricing slide. Just rip this off, use this, it works. So going back to it, what exactly is the post-demo feedback meeting? Well, essentially the post-demo feedback meeting is what I like to call internally, like at the company you work at, you call it your deal viability meeting. For a deal to progress from great discussions to genuine project, you need to have this clear like cutoff point where from this point on, it's like, okay, we're starting to get really serious now. And you know, it's that kind of like, it's that like do or die moment, right? Or like I know in like certain Hollywood movies, they're like, you either fuck or you die, right? Like it's one of those points. I'm probably gonna bleep that out. Actually, that was a bit rogue of me. Again, I've had too many coffees, but. Essentially, the importance of this meeting is you need to get some of those details out. You need to reconfirm the pain. You need to really shit test the urgency. Is this legit urgency? Do they really need to do this at this point? Are they aligned and committed to solving this problem? Are they evaluating other competitors? What is their evaluation time frame? If the project is budgeted, well, let's reconfirm that. What's the exact budget? What are we working towards here? Who else needs to be involved in final decision making? Is there a formal procurement process that needs to be undertaken? Like these are all questions that this is time for you to start getting this out, right? Like this is where you get this shit out. And if you don't get this out now, then you screw yourself for later. And if you get it out now, then you don't screw yourself for later. So very straightforward. You open off the meeting with a upfront contract. This is just a standard procedure at this point. So you basically just open off the meeting and say, hey guys, thanks for coming to that last demo. Hope you found that useful. Look, what I'd love to do today is, essentially let you know that, if we get to the end of today and we can't find a bit of a middle ground in terms of pricing and commercials and timelines, then that's totally fine. We can park discussions and pick them up whenever. Alternatively, if we do get through the end of today and you guys are happy with the discussion so far, then my ask is let's just, keep a couple minutes at the end and figure out how we can get into potentially testing the solution further, right? How do either of those outcomes sound for you? Okay, so pause out of roleplay mode, set the upfront contract. If you need to, record me saying that and then get your own version of the upfront contract, but set the upfront contract, super important, always do that. And essentially what you're gonna do is discuss the demo. So start off with that, right? Hey guys, like how did you find the demo? How did you find the session from last week? Were there any questions that came up? What was something that was really useful? What was something that maybe wasn't useful? Can you see how we can align to solve your problems, right? So get them to start to open up about this. What might be helpful, and again, this isn't a hard and fast, you can do this, is you can just pull up the 3 whys, right? So just pull up the 3 whys again and just say, guys, just thought I'd flash this up. These were the pain points that you shared, in terms of the why anything bucket. And what we showed you in the demo was this middle bucket. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Did we align? Is there anything we missed? Is there anything you want to see more of, right? So really use this opportunity, right? This is typically a 30-minute call. You can set it for 45. You can set it for an hour if you want, but I'd say 30 to 45 minutes, right? Start getting that feedback out. If the feedback is pretty positive and you can sense that they're starting to say stuff like, look, this is really good. It's hitting the mark. Where to from here? Then you want to flash up that pricing. Say, guys, look, I want to be transparent with you. Roughly, these are where the numbers land, right? So put this into presentation mode and take them through the good, the better, and the best scenario, right? And then just pause and say, guys, what are your thoughts? Are we roughly in the ballpark? Can we make this work? Get their feedback on that. Now, my take on this is if they can't afford like your cheapest solution, then you don't have a deal, man. If they can't afford to buy your base level solution, then now is the time to qualify out. Alternatively, you can also, if they are really keen and they are like, look, it's out of budget, but we do want to do this and we want to figure out a way to fund this, then this is where you start getting commercially creative. Hey, do we put a business case forward? Hey, is there another project that maybe we can shoehorn some funding from? Like, this is where you start to get commercially creative. But it only really works if the value is there. It only really works if you've done a great discovery, found pain, found urgency, articulated a 3 whys, got their buy-in, replayed the value back to them, showed them a good demo, gotten their feedback that the demo did hit the mark and they do see a value in the solution and they do need the solution, right? Like, this stuff only really works if you've done the foundational work. So share the pricing, get their feedback. If they can, sit within that ballpark. And I usually ask that question as a very gentle question. I say, guys, this is the upper and lower bounds. There is some flexibility here, but roughly this is where we're sort of looking between the lowest end and the higher end. How does this work for you, right? For the challenges that you've outlined, are we within the ballpark? Get their feedback. Once you've gotten that, then you want to start unpacking the customer's buying process in as much depth as possible, right? So ask them, hey, you mentioned to me the why now, right? The urgency is by this date. Are you still aligned to that? Is that your aspirational go live date, right? That's a great question to ask. The next one is, hey, are there any teams involved in the execution and are there any teams involved in the testing? What do you think in terms of a testing timeframe? Do you need a test with a proof of value or do you just want to do a bit of a reference customer test, right? Like, how do you guys want to evaluate the solution? Do you need to go to market for 3 solutions? Are you evaluating other competitors? Now's the time to ask that, right? Confirm, hey, is the budget allocated? You mentioned that the dollars could work or the dollars work. Do you guys have an allocated budget for this, or is that something that is an additional step that needs to go for an approval? Who's the ultimate person here that we need to convince, right? So I would actually word this question, who's the ultimate person / group of people who will have to convince, right? Again, I say who we will have to convince. Not who you'll have to convince, who we'll have to convince. And the reason for that is, at this point, you're assuming you and your champion, you're a team, right? You guys are working together like this. So you want to start using we language and not make it standoffish. So now's the time to start getting some of this information out. Now, for the clincher. And this could go a couple of different ways, okay? And this is where you have to be dynamic. They may come back to you and say, look, I still have to go and actually get some executive approvals. And if that's the case, let them know that you will send them a business case. And your business case is really straightforward. It's just a summary of discussions to date, the pain points they've outlined, the solution that you have, and a recap of the commercials, and a recap of any value that they're going to receive. Attach the 3 whys, attach the pricing slide, attach any logo references that you have, send it off to them. If you have a business value team, most vendors, large vendors or mid-sized vendors will have what's called a BVA or a business value assessment team. They will help you build out some cool stuff that you can use in your sales cycle. But if that doesn't exist, that's okay, right? You might just have to come up with some sort of back of the napkin business case. Alternatively, just keep it simple. What is the problem? What is the solution? What is the commercials? What is the proposed time frame? And some indicative ideas of what the value could be, right? Pull that together in an email, flick it off to them, and arm them with as much as you can, coach them as much as you can to go be successful in pitching that funding. But if they do say that, look, we've got dollars, they might say, look, we do have dollars. We can move forward into testing. And you validate the testing timeframes. You validate if it's going to be a competitive testing scenario, meaning that it's not just you, it's a couple of other people. Then your logical next step, right? And what you want to propose is essentially the go, no go meeting, right? And so what I usually call this, obviously you don't say this to the customer, you don't say it's the go, no go meeting, but what you can call it is the POV go ahead meeting, right? Or you can call it the POV/POC, depending on whatever language or lingo you use. But essentially, that's the proof of value or proof of concept go-ahead meeting. And essentially what you want to do is deliver this talk track, right? So if they say, look, yeah, we're happy to move forward, we want to go ahead to test, and you are not dealing with the final executive decision maker, meaning you're dealing with, say, the CIO, but it's ultimately the CFO who's going to make the final call on it. Or maybe you're dealing with the head of IT and they report to a CIO. Then what you can do is really take charge of the sales cycle with this talk track to secure the economic buyer, who is the ultimate decision maker, the person that makes the final call on this. You want to secure them for this next meeting, right? So prior to the POC or the POV going ahead, what you want to say is, essentially, this is the talk track. You say, look, pause. Let's say their name is Bob, right? So I basically say, Bob, really looking forward to testing the solution. I think you're going to get a lot of value from this. I do need a little favor. One of the things that my business, the company I represent, they are pretty hard on and pretty firm on, is for a proof of value to go ahead, because there is resources that we have to deploy, and our engineering team really gives you a white glove experience with this proof of value. Their ask is that we have a quick 30-minute conversation with the executive on your side, who is the person you mentioned that makes the ultimate decision. And we would need to have a bit of a briefing session where we walk through the conversations to date, share the high level numbers, share the value of the solution, who we work with, the high level kind of timeline for the testing, and just make sure that everyone is on the same page. The reason again for this is because of the investment in the time and the resources on our side. We have noticed that when we didn't do this, we had essentially a lot of resources that were allocated to proof of values and proof of concepts that could have been better allocated. So the business now is quite firm on this. Is that something that you'd be able to help me with? Is that something that we could set up in the next week or the next couple weeks, just for a quick 30 minutes to make sure that everyone is on the same page prior to us moving forward and really giving you that experience of a quality proof of value? Time out, get out of roleplay mode. If you need to listen to that again, record it, reword it, but essentially what you're saying is, look, I'm the good cop, my business is the bad cop. I want you to have the proof of value. I want you to get your hands on the solution and test it. But for us to be able to do that, we got to make sure that everyone's on the same page, right? So can you help me out here, right? Can we organize a quick 30 minutes, right? So it is incredibly critical that at this point in the sales cycle, you drop the hammer on them. You drop the hammer on them because you know what they want. They want your solution. The numbers work. They're pretty excited. Now, for you to give them a proof of value, you got to get executive access. So important that you do this. The only alternative to this, right? Worst case scenario, if they push back and they're like, nah, the CFO doesn't do that, can't do that, then your backup plan is you need to get a written approval in an email saying that they acknowledge the discussions to date, and that if the testing is successful, that you will be the preferred solution. So then how you would word that, let's say, for example, Bob's like, dude, I can't do that. Like the CFO just doesn't do that. He doesn't give us access. He doesn't let himself get involved. I really can't do that. My hands are tied. Let's say that Bob says that. Then basically what you got to say is, okay, Bob, are you sure? Is there nothing you can do? Bob still says no. Okay. You say, okay, Bob, that's fair. Well, how's about this then? Because the business needs to see some form of acknowledgement, and my hands are tied on that as well. So how about, Bob, I send you an email summary of our discussions to date, include the pricing, all the above. Can you send that to the CFO and get us a response from the CFO in an email clearly showing that he or she has read this, acknowledges the discussions to date, is aware of the commercials, is aware of the timeframes, and acknowledges that if we are successful in testing, that we will go ahead as the preferred vendor. Can you get that to me in writing? I will need to at least share that with my executive before I can really do anything here. Are you able to help me out with that? Now, what you're pause. We're out of roleplay mode. What you're doing there is you're forcing some form of commitment. Okay, like I see so many reps, they don't ask this question. They don't ask that hard question. They don't fucking put their foot to the prospect's neck and say, look, if you want this help, you got to help me out too, buddy. And you got to have that attitude, and you got to have that question up your sleeve, right? It's so important that you do that. So that is how you get executive access. If you can't get executive access, you push, you try, then your next best bet is a letter of intent. Alternatively, what you can do is potentially get your VP to email your champion and say, hey, listen, I heard Joe asked you this. You know, it's really important that we do this. It's really important that we have this call. Is there any way that we can organize this call and I will sit in on that call, right? So get your VP to then say that they will be involved in that sales cycle as well and come in as an executive so that there's a bit of an executive to executive matchup, right? I've done this plenty of times before, guys. I know it might seem like a really uncomfortable question to ask, but when you ask this question, you can shortcut a lot of bullshit. It also gives you an opportunity to honestly qualify a deal out. Like, if you can't get them to give you executive access and you can sense that they're full of shit, like your champion could be the CIO, but I've dealt with CIOs that are full of shit. Okay, so if your champ can't move on this, then that's potentially an indication as well that you don't have a legitimate champion. That champion doesn't have much sway internally, that even though they have a chief in their title, they might just be perceived as a bag of hot air internally, right? So this is all an opportunity to also vet your deal at a very deep level, okay? This is some pretty advanced stuff. Most reps don't do this, but very successful reps in successful sales organizations do. And I want you to be successful, so start to implement this. Again, if this is too much of a jump for you, if you're just not sure about how to actually go about implementing this stuff, reach out to me down below. Let's have a chat. See if there's an opportunity for me to actually help you more closely. But otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, drop some comments in the chat below in terms of questions. And I'll see you on the next one, and go back and watch all the other videos in this playlist. That link is also down below. My team should have that in there. Load that up, binge it, make it date night. I'm filming this 2 days before Valentine's Day, so maybe you can make it Valentine's Day special, right? You can watch sales training videos. It's going to be awesome. All right, good luck with everything. I'll see you on the next one.